If holiday celebrations around the world have something in common, it's the story of transformation from one season to another, or the ordinary into the miraculous. And that's very much the story of all the transformations and familiar standbys in the Christmas Revels. This year, on its 50th anniversary, there will also be one more transformation to streaming performance, with a chance to catch the spirit of Revels present and past. To tell us how it will be done are two guests from the Revels, Artistic Director Paddy Swanson and Interim Music Director George Emlen. Gentlemen, thank you very much for being with us.
Thanks for having us.
Pleasure.
I want to start with Paddy because, after seeing some of these performances over the years, I so much enjoyed the interior of Sanders Theater, the presence of all those people and all the movement and the color. I'm saying, how can you capture that by going to a streaming version?
Well, it was a challenge, but we have some extraordinary people in our team on the technical side. Michael Kolowich, who has a company called DigiNovations, does our archive videos every year. And we usually just distribute them to the cast and crew. But it means that we have this big archive of shows that we've done through the years. And he also has taken shots of the interior of Sanders Theater. You know, it's a 200-plus-year-old acoustic miracle, really, all old wood, and shaped like the Sheldonian Theatre in Oxford, so that the audience can see each other as they're observing the stage. And also they feel like they're pretty close to the stage. They are, in fact, even though it's a 1,200-plus house. So as George was saying, we have a virtual audience and we have a virtual chorus. And by the magic of green screen and some real artistry, you're going to see people on both sides of the stage. So people should feel at home.
George, I know by now maybe we've gotten used to musicians that are streaming, with great sound quality, even the sense of ensemble. But the experience of Christmas Revels has been about the audience singing along, the Lord of the Dance. How do you come close to that?
Again, George, you could pick that up if you like.
Oh, sure. I'd be glad to. It's like everything else in this virtual world. It's a challenge to pull it off successfully. But in fact, what we've done this year is ask people to send in videos of themselves singing to some of our favorite sing-along songs, with Joy to the World and Opening Carol, and the famous Round a Donut Nobis Pacem, Give Us Peace, and our closing carol, the Sussex Mummers Carol. So we have hundreds of videos, which thanks to our wonderful video editor, Sid Levin of First Frame, we've been able to assemble into a virtual audience. And it's really quite impressive. It's really quite emotionally uplifting to see all these people weighing in from around the country. They're not just Cambridge people. They're all over the place and around the world even. It's really quite extraordinary.
Paddy, normally a Revels performance would focus on one particular culture, maybe one particular point in time, and have a storyline. Right. So what's the storyline for this performance?
Well, I mean, the story really is about how the hell do we create a virtual Revels. Revels is the diametric opposite of social distancing. So in order to make it happen, we brought the makers onto the stage, very disgruntled, really, looking at an empty house and saying, how on earth are we going to create this? And in fact, we looked through our mailing lists and so on for people that had seen the largest number of shows over the 50 years that we've been doing them. And then suddenly we thought, oh, there are two people that actually have seen every single show. And they are the two marble statues on either side of the stage, James Otis and Josiah Quincy. And the trick then would be to bring them to life and they, as keepers of the echoes of Sanders Theatre, they've heard everything, could play back, and technically we have almost the whole 50 years in video. The earliest versions are very sort of scratchy, black and white, um, um, film, and the present ones are masterpieces of technology. So we have a very wide spread there that we can access.
George, one of the other contributors is Yo-Yo Ma. He's well known as a cellist, but he's also a sort of a purveyor of musical cultures from around the world. So how do those things combine in what he's going to be doing?
Well, he's among other things, among the many things that Yo-Yo Ma is, he is also a great fan of Revels. He's been bringing his family to Revels for decades, and he's one of our most loyal supporters in every way. He promotes us. So it's wonderful to have him. A brilliant suggestion by Paddy Swanson here, my colleague, to bring him into the mix of Donna Nobis Pacem. Have him play the thing along to our archival track and along to those hundreds of voices out in the audience. So we have him joining us for this moment, and it's extraordinary because he's such a widely traveled and well-connected guy. He's worked with everybody imaginable around the world, and here he is right here in his hometown of Cambridge joining us for this occasion. It's really quite special.
Paddy, I guess I got to ask you what it's like to be putting this together now, especially when you've got a retrospective component as well, because I've seen these performances. I'm thinking of the one not so many years ago about the Acadians who don't live in Nova Scotia anymore. In a way, your own audience they're the people who are missing. How does that make you feel?
Everybody that is in the theater and the performing arts has gone through a time of grieving, because the magic is a live audience in a specific place at a specific time with the actors on stage, and what happens in that crucible is for that moment. That's the big thing about theater. So yes, we grieve that, but then I'm quite amazed at how much this sort of lockdown has got the creative juices flowing. A lot of people are doing really interesting things, and I should say, we've had fun doing this, and I'm not sure that I would have gone back to the beginning and looked through all of the videos that we've done, over the years. It's quite a journey, and it's emotionally. I mean, for one part of it is that it just revives memories, but the other part is that you see suddenly, as from 30,000 feet, you see the breadth of where we have been geographically, culturally, all these different ways of celebrating this darkness into light. And Lord knows, this year we have a job to do. We are, if you like, if the statues are the keepers of the echoes, we are the keepers of how you get from the dark to the light. So we hope that we do a good job this year.
George, how do you feel if you've looked back at some of this archival material yourself? You see these people dancing in the hall outside the auditorium. You see these musicians. You see what people look like when they were younger, maybe when they dressed differently. Does that do anything to you?
Oh, absolutely. For one thing, I was there for a lot of those shows. For most of them, I don't go way back to the very first day, but these are people that I've known and associated with, and yeah, it brings back a lot of memories for me. And it shows how, as a show, we've really refined what we do, both in terms of stagecraft and in terms of script development and in terms of musical precision. I think we've retained the joy and the fervor that comes from the cast, that radiates from the chorus, but I think that we've actually gotten a lot better at what we do as we go from one culture to another, whether it's Mexico or Norway or Armenia. I think we maintain our artistic standards even as we retain some of our roots.
Paddy, I should mention that you've put a lot of thought into the streaming experience. This is not just about a link to a certain place on the web. You've got a lot of advice about ways people can enhance the experience, and also about some different options for both this year's content and past years. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Right. I mean, you know, we're not the technology wizards, but it is. We have some instructions on our website of different ways of doing this. You know, we're very keen on keeping this idea of a live event as much as possible. We've to some of our sponsors, we've sent out little boxes with kits for the experience that they can unlock at the time and join in some of the things that are going on. Like we have a wassail party, which is before the event. But then within the event, you know, people can view this on their computers, or they can screencast it onto a television. I think every organization, performing arts organization, is struggling a little bit with how to bring people along so that they know how to do this. We've done as good a job as we can in terms of instructions. And there's a lot of you know, YouTube videos that people can watch about how to do some of this stuff. But I'd say that there are numerous ways in which you can participate. And what we'd love is to have a family that lives in a house, you know, make it into an event, make it as if you're going, sit down with the popcorn, as it were, and make it into something where we can sing together and actually participate, because that's where the juice is.
Two things finally, when it becomes available and where they should go online to find it.
Well, best way to do it is go to www.revels.org. That will give you a lot more information about the entire organization.
Gentlemen, thank you both very much for taking the time to be with us.
Thank you, Chris. It's a great pleasure as always.
It's been a pleasure. Thanks so much, Chris.
Thank you, George Emlen and Paddy Swanson from Revels. We'll have more news in just a moment.